because you want to see best versus the best, and he's one of the best.
Well, that's a beautiful segue, because that's one of the things I've been really disappointed about. Is that there's been so many players who already have announced that they are not planning on participating in their team's bowl games. And there is a whole list of them. I mean, whether it be Houston defensive lineman Ed Oliver, whether it be Arizona State wide receiver N'Keal Harry. I think I know how you're going to feel about this, Scott, but still wanted to kind of ask you your thoughts as a general manager, as a guy who has made that decision to draft a player or not draft a player. How important is it to you? If a player has had a very solid career, how important is it to you that he play in that final bowl game?
The thing about it is it's a very good question. I learned early on with Mike Holmgren, the best NFL players that come out of college are ones that accept a responsibility by taking a scholarship and finishing that. And it's not so much just getting a degree, but it's the fact that the teammates that believe in you, they want to win the game no matter what. And when you're a player, I understand it's a business decision. Don't get me wrong. I understand agents are involved and multiple millions of dollars are involved. But you got your brothers, next to you. And if you walk away from that, okay, all right, so what's going to happen when we lose 4 in a row in the NFL? Are you going to walk away from that? Yeah. Are you going to sit down and say, I don't want to play? Nah, you got to take care of the people that are taking care of you. Now, it's old school, I understand, and I am old school. But, would it affect me drafting a guy that's talented, really talented? Probably not. But it's the first thing I talk to him about at the combine. It's the first thing I'd ask him. Why? What about your best friend that's lined up next to you? What about the guy across the line of scrimmage on your defense that you're roommates with? And you're just going to walk away from that final game, which is a huge game. It's a bowl game.
Yeah.
That's how you finish your career. But I mean, like I said, I'm old school, but I don't like the fact that you're not finishing what you started.
No, I agree with you. I think that's really well stated, because I always get nervous because there's some out there. I've heard former general managers on the air, kind of proclaim that should a player not participate in their final bowl game, then they basically suggested that they wouldn't draft him. And I thought, well, that's kind of crazy. I mean, that's an exaggeration there. But yeah, I agree. I mean, when you have that opportunity to sit down with them at the combine or a private visit, then I absolutely would have that question. I want to see that player squirm. I want him to feel uncomfortable that you're kind of disappointed in him for making a decision. You understand it. I mean, because we all know the tragic story that was Jalen Smith, Notre Dame linebacker, and all that slided in the second round of the Cowboys, because of that injury. But at the same time, that unfortunately it happened. But it happens so incredibly rarely that I just think that, as you said, and as Coach Mike Holmgren said, you have a commitment now, and I think that's part of maturing. And so that's last week we talked a lot about some of the players who have made some questionable decisions off the field. And rather than kind of jump into that topic again this week, I want to kind of focus in on football. And I do think that, but that is a legitimate question that you have to ask these players, because they are some talented players. At least for me, I think that Ed Oliver and N'Keal Harry are first round caliber players. I felt that way since I watched them play as freshmen. But so they are about as proven of a commodity as you can get. Christian McCaffrey a few years ago, same kind of thing. I mean, a proven commodity. But if you are a player that has had any type of injury issues or is a one-year wonder, so to speak, then I think it's crazy talk to not play in the All-Star or not play in a bowl game. And even if you are a proven commodity, again, I'd ask the same type of question that you just mentioned, Scott, about what about your brothers? How do I know that we can rely on you as a leader of our team? And so to me, that's one of the more interesting debates that's going on in college football today.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And like I said, it's a business decision by them. And the agents, sad to say, but get involved in it too much, saying, okay, if you get hurt, like Jalen, he got hurt.
Yep.
How many millions of dollars did he lose? But you know what? It's football. What happens if you get hurt in the NFL your first game? I mean, it can happen anywhere. You get hurt walking across the street. But I think when you have a fraternity of brothers that you've gone 3 years with, 4 years with, 5 years with, whatever, and daily are around each other pretty much, and then you just shut it down and you're the best player on the team, personally, I don't respect that.
Yeah.
Again, not saying that, I wouldn't draft a guy, because I would if he's that talented, and I'd figure him out, in the meetings and all that stuff. But still, personally, looking at it right now, Bosa shut it down, 2.5 months ago, 2 months ago.
That's a good point.
Yeah, he could have came back, and, he's like, no, I'm waiting for the NFL. Okay, well, the NFL, you'll be in the NFL. We know that.
Yeah.
But it's not going to wait for you if you pull that stuff.
Yeah.
It's gonna run you off. So I mean, it's a great question. It's a great debate. It could go on for hours and hours, because there's solid things on both sides.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I'm happy you mentioned Nick Bosa. I mean, like you said, he's been out for a couple of months, and you look at Ohio State. I mean, I tried to make the argument with you last week before they beat Northwestern. I thought Ohio State was one of the 4 most gifted teams in the country and should be in that conversation for the playoff. Now, I understand why they didn't get it, but I still think that they're very talented. And if Nick, that would be the argument I'd have, is if Nick Bosa is playing on that team, then I think that they probably are a top 4 team. I think they probably are playing in the college football playoff right now, because I think he's that good.
Yeah, well, you got to figure he was their best player.
Exactly.
Offense or defense. And, again, I go back to it, it's a business decision. He's got an agent in his ear, I'm sure it's his brother's agent, saying, nah, just shut it down. Just get ready, for combine, pro day, and get ready to get drafted early in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is it's pretty hard to argue with that when he very likely is going to be drafted very, very highly. And with this amount of time to prepare, he likely is going to tear up workouts. Not that he wouldn't have torn up workouts anyways, because he's but he's just going to be that much better. Well, before I let you go, Ed, another 15 minutes or so, I want to kind of maybe focus a little bit more on the NFL. And I've been talking for, pretty much all of our episodes, it seems like at one time or another, I've mentioned that I just do not like this year's running back class. And maybe it's just because I just was so in love with the last 2 running back classes, and really feel like next year's running back class is going to be exceptional for the 2020 draft. But this 2019 draft, I am struggling with a little bit. And so I want to kind of talk to you about a couple of different things. So I've got a couple of players here. You mentioned before about Alabama, Georgia. Just throwing my opinion out there. I don't know I've seen a more gifted NFL draft eligible back so far than Alabama's backup, Josh Jacobs. In terms of explosiveness, in terms of toughness, in terms of size, 5'10", 215, 220 pounds. He's the guy I'm intrigued by, but still, I'm not going to invest a first-round pick in him. And I do like the toughness of another SEC back, the junior Kentucky Benny Snell. I have some questions about his speed, but I like his toughness. And I think toughness is one of those traits that, is absolutely critical to running back. But I want to talk to you about an NFL running back, and that being the great Adrian Peterson, who just accomplished some incredible, career milestones here just this past week and so far this season. And kind of ask you to take a trip in the Scot McCloughan Wayback Machine and think if you can remember back when Adrian Peterson was coming out of Oklahoma. We talked about the Sooners a lot today, and just think about what a prospect he was. Now, I'm going to give you some numbers to kind of help jog your memory.
I got it. I got it. Don't worry. I know him. I know him.
Yeah, you've heard of this guy.
I scouted him. That's part of my back in the day. That's part of my area.
All right. Well, tell me what you remember about him then a little bit, just as a prospect, and then and I'll tell you some of the statistics that he's produced so far this year that are just mind-boggling for a 33-year-old running back that was out of the league for a little while.
Yeah, coming out, he was a freak.
Yeah.
Just seeing him physically in person, in practice. I went to a game and watched him play live too. It's unique because he's kind of like Eric Dickerson from the standpoint he's more of an upright runner.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, but he was so strong and so explosive, and it's one of those things. You see him, you're like, okay, dang, this is a good-looking guy. It's a big guy. But all of a sudden, you get up close to him, and you feel the explosion. You feel the speed. It's like, wow. You can't teach that stuff. That's God-given.
Yeah.
He comes from a good background genetics-wise, and they'd tell you about that Oklahoma, half the day. I'm like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
But I had no thoughts of him not being a legit NFL running back at all, coming out at all. And the thing about it, I know he's got a little background stuff and all that, but when you sat and talked to him, he was a great kid, very, very polite, came across, as a mature kid. But it was just to see him. I mean, he's got muscles on muscles.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And, everybody's like, why is he still playing? I said, God-given. Genetics, man. The guy, he was a stud. He was a stud. There was no doubt, in my opinion, that he was going to be a legit NFL running back.
Well, it's interesting. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting that you said there was no doubt, because I had doubt, and it wasn't about his talent. It was just about his durability. And just because he did struggle with durability at Oklahoma. And in my mind, because for some of the reasons that you just said, Scott, that he was so well built. And so I sometimes worry about guys that are so built that they lose some of that flexibility. Obviously, he's proven me long wrong. I mean, he's incredible. You're obviously a Hall of Fame player in terms of just his physical talent and his production. But yeah, I was worried about Adrian Peterson, and I don't want to have revisionist history and try and lie and say I was not. I mean, phenomenal talent. 6'0", is what he measured at, 217 pounds, and then got clocked at least, according to NFLDraftScout.com's records, 4.41 in the 40-yard dash, which, again, 217 pounds and almost 6'2", 6'1.5". That is flying. And it doesn't even really put into perspective his power, as you mentioned. Just, it's you see backs that have power. You see backs that have speed. And they very rarely are the same guy, Right. And so that's what was so exciting to me about Adrian Peterson. When he's coming out of Oklahoma, I thought, physically speaking, this guy could absolutely take over the NFL. And, of course, he did. But I also worried that he would struggle much, much, much more with durability than he has. For all those different reasons I mentioned, and as you mentioned against guys like Eric Dickerson, as an upright runner, I thought he would take more pounding than he has. So for him to be as successful as he has, even now, to me is really one of the great accomplishments in modern day sports for all of the different reasons that he's missed time, whether it be off field issues or it be medical issues, whatever. For him to still be rolling like this, I mean, his Sunday was the 16th touchdown, 16th of 50 plus yards over his career, and that tied the record with Barry Sanders. So, and we all know Barry Sanders, what a dynamic runner he was, but he was never known for power. I mean, that's the thing. He was quickness, he was speed. That's, to me, is what's so extraordinary about Adrian Peterson, is that he tied a record of a back who is probably 30 pounds lighter than him. And so to me, that's remarkable. This is his second 50-plus yard touchdown run just this season. He had a 64-yarder in Week 8 against the Giants. He had a 90-yarder, of course, this past weekend against the Eagles, which, oh, by the way, I love that they're against divisional opponents. This isn't beating up on the weak teams. This is, you run for a 90-yard touchdown